Hello and welcome to Action Playbook Live. I am Gilles Gallant, and you are watching the NFL pregame betting show here with the Action Network. We are live on YouTube and on X Twitter. It's Super Bowl 60 in the NFL. New England Patriots, Seattle Seahawks. It doesn't matter how they got here. It's the last two teams standing as we put a bow on the season. Now, it's only one game, but we got a ton to cover for Super Bowl 60. Sportsbooks have close to like 1,000 different markets to bet on. There's player props, touchdown bets, cross sport bets, novelty markets, halftime, anthem, you name it. So we're going to go through all these different bets that we like today. Nick Giffen is going to join us here shortly. We're going to talk about some luck rankings for Super Bowl 60 and maybe even some in-game betting scenarios to consider for Super Bowl 60 before Bet What Happens Live that will be at halftime in the Action Network Discord. Evan Abrams, our director of research here at Action Network, he's going to give us an update on the latest betting trends, market moves, maybe even some historical context for Super Bowl 60. And joining me off the hop are Sean Kerner and Chris Raybon. We've got a couple of bets that we like last minute bets here. Now, reminder, if you want to tail any of the bets that we give out today, easiest way to do it, use the quick slips in the YouTube chat because we're going to be dropping links in the chat after every pick we make. And a really fun development, guys. Kalshi is now available with quick slips from the Playbook. So we're adding exchanges to Playbook. That's going to be a new feature that's going to be continued to go in. So got that in just in time for Super Bowl 60. And of course, if you are watching on X or Twitter, Playbook's going to be tweeting out our picks from the show. So you can go to that account at Playbook and you can get the quick slips from there. Now, one last thing before we get started, really important. Action Pro. This is the best time to sign up for Action Pro because you can get an annual subscription right now for only $60. That's a 50% off savings. You'll get access to exclusive player prop picks from Sean Kerner, Chris Raybon, everybody on the Action Analytics team. You'll also be able covered for NBA, Major League Baseball, March Madness, and all of next NFL season. So it makes the most sense to sign up today to get full coverage. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro today, and this deal is available until kickoff of Super Bowl 60. All right, Kerner, right now, looking at the action profile, you have probably what, 15 bets locked in of all different variety, like,
Yeah.
defensive props, all this stuff. So at this point, a lot of these lines and props are pretty sharp, but I think you still have one left in the can that we could give out here. So what are we looking at that we can use
Yeah.
that still has a little bit of an edge left, but as we
Yeah,
get to
so
Super Bowl 60?
I have 14 official bets now. So why not add two more? I have two more, Jill.
Oh,
Two
sick. All right, here
more.
we go.
One of my favorite markets for this Super Bowl, FanDuel offers, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter props along with the first quarter. So I've had some fun attacking those. I have Hunter Henry under in the first quarter, but over in the second quarter.
Yeah.
So it's going to make for a fun sweat. So I'm going to do another double dip here where I'm betting different directions on the same player, and I'm going with Kenneth Walker in the second quarter to go under 15 and a half rushing yards. I think that number is kind of insane because he only averaged 8 yards in the second quarter during the regular season. And in the conference championship, we saw his usage change quite a bit with Zach Charbonnet out, where he essentially played every snap in the first quarter for the first two drives of the game, which makes sense. It's a pretty big drop off from Charbonnet to George Holani. Then what Holani did was he took a breather for Walker on the third drive, which is at the start of the second quarter. So Walker didn't play any snaps on that drive. And then, when you get closer to the 2 minute warning, Seattle's not going to be throwing the ball. Holani probably going to be out there. So I think in theory, Walker probably has the fourth drive of the game to clear this number. And this is a brutal matchup. So, I don't know how he's going to do it. He's going to have to break a long one. So, I've been projected around three and a half carries in the second quarter. And I think that's a pretty aggressive projection. So I have his median closer to 11 and a half rushing yards in the second quarter, about a 61% chance to stay under 15 and a half. So I just think this number is way too high for the second quarter. On the flip side,
Yeah.
the third quarter, they're offering 14 and a half rushing yards. I like the over on that one. He averaged 23 and a half rushing yards in the third quarter all season. And that was, splitting time with Charbonnet. So I think in this game, he's going to probably take every snap on early downs in the third quarter. Holani might mix in a little bit in the fourth quarter, but I think the third quarter is going to be all Walker. So this line's too low. I have the median closer to 19 yards here, even with a really tough matchup. I think, he's going to need 5 or 6 carries to get there. But again, I'm showing quite a bit of value, like 62% chance he can clear 14 and a half rushing yards in the third quarter. So I'm going to have kind of a mixed sweat here on Kenneth Walker.
I love it. And I think this is a really interesting angle of how you can attack Kenneth Walker rushing props because a lot of people don't just look at the full game number and, you'll see if it's climbing, they're not looking at the full game context of how this could play out, right? So I think this is a really interesting way to do that. So you're going to be taking the under on the second quarter rushing yard prop, but the over on the rushing yard prop for Kenneth Walker. So I love that kind of style of bet. All right, Raybon, you are up, and you're also looking at a Seahawks running back, but you're fading him in a different way. How we going?
Yeah, I mean, I've already faded Kenneth Walker a ton, so I don't think I can do that anymore. So I'm going with George Holani under 11 and a half receiving yards. And the reason is because I think we're getting a really kind of high number to fade here, which is nice because last game, he had an outlier performance against the Rams. He came out, he was the receiving down back. I mean, he pretty much matched Kenneth Walker in receiving snaps in that game. And I don't think the Rams expected it. And so, he caught 3 passes on 4 targets just on 17 routes. All of those things are outliers for him. He's going to be in there. Now, he is trusted in pass protection. And I think that's one of the reasons why the under makes for a good bet here, because I do think he's going to see pass snaps again in this game. Maybe not to the same extent, but the New England Patriots, they've been one of the just above average in blitz rate on the year. But second half of the season, they jump into the top 10. Since the bye, they are number 6 in blitz rate. And if you look at Sam Darnold's numbers, he does get rattled by the blitz. And so I think that you're going to have to account for that. And Hawani's usually going to be the guy that's going to be kind of charged with, protecting, and so he's going to be the guy, like if there's an audible or they see extra pressure, even if it's just sim pressure, and they back out of it, he's still going to be the guy that has to kind of stay in, come back into the backfield, do things like that. So I don't think he's going to have a repeat here. And you also had 2 weeks off. So Kenneth Walker had a 63% snap rate to 34% for Holani in that conference championship. I think that could go up for Walker. I think, just because he's one of the more explosive players, on the team, probably the second most explosive after JSN and Shaheed, I guess. So they're going to need him on the field. So I think Holani, I think that was just kind of like a one-off thing. And I expect Seattle to be in more positive games than New England. I think it's going to be a pretty close game, but because of that, there's not going to be those chances for just like cheap dump offs and stuff later in the game. So a lot of angles for why I like Holani under 11 and a half receiving. Also in that game against the Rams, they play the third most too high safety, and that makes it easy to just kind of dump it off to the back underneath. There's not another guy down there to kind of account for that as quickly. Whereas the Patriots, they favor a lot more single high coverages. They'll man up, which makes it, pretty hard to get the ball to running backs. That's when you're starting to look for other receivers. And New England third best on defense in yards per reception allowed to running backs on the season. So give me Holani under 11 and a half.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too about the blitz rate that you talked about since the bye, even in the playoffs, like they've been blitzing at almost like a 40% rate through these playoffs. So, I really like this George Holani pick. So I also have a Seahawks pick, but it is a pick. It's an interception pick. Now I had this at DraftKings around -115. It's moved to like -125 as the morning has gone on. But I'm going to take Sam Darnold to throw an interception. 14 interceptions during the regular season, 20 turnover worthy plays. And I think this line is not representing kind of what we're seeing because he hasn't thrown an interception in the playoffs. I think it's been a bit lucky given the matchups because if you look at the last 3 games, for example, that was the Niners twice. That defense is completely broken down, could get no pressure at all. He only had to throw it 17 times in the playoff game. And when he played the Rams, he did have one turnover worthy play, but it was dropped. So I think I don't think the Patriots are going to drop it in this scenario. And you talked about the Patriots run defense just with Milton Williams back when we did the touchdown show pod, just of the difference that he has made for them. So if Darnold's pass frequency is a little bit higher, more and closer in line with the NFC title game, I have this closer to like -135. So again, around -120, I'm going to take this every time for Sam Darnold. So before we move on here, guys, I want to ask you, Kerner, can you give me a final score? What do you think of final score between Seahawks Patriots tonight?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to the spread in total. I'm going to go Seahawks 24, Patriots 20, but I do have the Patriots plus 3.5 in the first half. So I hope they cover that. But I think, eventually Seattle hangs on, wins a close one.
What about you, Raybon? Do you think it's the Seahawks game tonight, or do you think the Patriots maybe keep it close, maybe even pull off the upset?
You know, I'm really torn because at first I thought it was going to be more of a Seahawks comfortable, but I the more I look at it, I think this game is a lot more even than maybe even the market thinks. So I'm going to go Seattle 19, New England 17.
Ooh, a barn burner of 1970. That's going to be a close ass game. All right. So Kerner is on the Kenneth Walker rushing parlay, under in the second quarter, over in the third quarter. You were on George Holani under 11.5 receiving yards with Braybon, and I'm on Sam Darnold for an interception. So guys, why don't you take a quick break? We'll get you back here later in the show. We're going to talk some more long shots for Patriots Seahawks, but let's talk with Derek Carty now and see what player props he likes for Super Bowl 60. We now welcome back to Action Playbook Live, Derek Carty, creator of the Blitz projections in the NFL. You can follow him in the Action app at Derek Carty. He's been on the show every week, giving out his favorite two player props. Been pretty successful this year as well. And remember to grab those quick sip links in the chat because some of these prop lines, they may move once Derek gives them out. And right now, seeing two props, both at plus money. Where are we going with the first one, Derek?
First one I'm looking at is Seattle running back George Holani under 1.5 receptions at plus 120. Bet365 has the best odds on the board right now, but you can find it within 5 or 10 points pretty much everywhere. I like this one a lot. The Blitz is projecting 1.3, so we're getting like a 60% projected win rate on this, and we're getting it at plus money. I think this is an overreaction to the conference championship where Holani got 4 targets, he had 3 catches. I don't see that happening again. When you look under the hood and you see that he was basically just running the Charbonnet routes that Zach Charbonnet was getting before he got hurt. And Charbonnet was never a guy that was a favorite to get 2 receptions. He went under this in 61% of his games this year. We're getting it at plus money. This one just seems like a really obvious, plus EV play.
Yeah, and especially as we get to the Super Bowl, I find you're going to start to see like the highest snap rate of the season for a lot of these players. So like Kenneth Walker, he's probably going to get the largest volume he has seen this year in this championship, or even though he may not be as effective with Milton Williams there, that's okay. So we're going to fade George Holani under 1.5 receptions. That's around plus 120 at Bet365. Your next prop is on the Patriots side. What are we doing there?
Next one I'm looking at is Travion Henderson under 4.5 carries, plus 118 at DraftKings is the best odds on the board right now. Similar, the Blitz is projecting 4.3 here, so another one that's about a 60% or so projected winner. And it's another one where he's behind the starter here. He's behind Ramondre Stevenson, who has become the bell cow in this offense. We're in the Super Bowl where we could see Ramondre get even more work than he has been, which is going to be hard because in the conference championship, he got like all of it. Travion Henderson only had 3 rush attempts. You look at the game script here too. The Patriots are underdogs. They're probably going to have to pass the ball more than they will in other games. This one sets up pretty well for me, I think.
And I mean, there's also the potential of Drake Maye poaching a few carries out of the backfield as well.
Sure.
And I think as well, they'll probably try to see if there's ways to get him on the field. It just might not be in the backfield. I think they might actually start to try to use him maybe in the return game as well. So yeah, let's go over this again. George Holani under 1.5 receptions. You can get that at plus odds. And Travion Henderson under 4.5 carries. So that is Derek's picks for Super Bowl 60. Make sure to follow him in the Action app at Derek Carty. And I'm sure we will have a lot more baseball content coming from you as the season gets there. So thanks a lot, Derek. Thanks. Great work all year, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks a lot. Good luck. Good luck, everybody.
All right, many thanks to Derek Carty for joining us. We now welcome in Dr. Nick Giffen, the creator of the Luck Rankings. You can read up on these every week in the Action app, especially during the regular season where he breaks down the luckiest or the unluckiest NFL teams based on what we saw on the field. Now, Nick, we're in the final game of the year, Super Bowl 60. At this point, do we still have luck involved at this stage? Just break this down for me, because again, I'm sure that people would probably think that one side is lucky, but what are we seeing here?
Yeah, there's no luck angle on the side here. Seattle is quote unquote the unlucky team. They rank number 7 in our luck rankings, while New England ranks number 4. That would give this a luck score just under 0.4, so that's an F grade. So no real
Right.
angle on the side here. But if we look at the total, this is what we call a playoff luck over. So not a regular season luck over where you need at least a plus 1.5 luck score, but in the playoffs, we found any positive number is a playoff luck over, and any negative number is a playoff luck under. And playoff luck totals overall since 2018 have gone 62, 36, and 1. That's 63.3% on playoff luck totals. And if we just look at the overs, since this is a playoff luck over, they have gone 24, 14, and 1. That's 63.2%. This has a luck total of 0.6, like I said. So this one is towards the over. Also, in the Super Bowl itself, the luck total has hit in 6 of 7 Super Bowls since our luck rankings database goes back to 2018. The 5 unders went 4-1 to the under, and the 5 playoff luck overs, which coincidentally enough were each of the last 2 years, both went 2-0 to the over. So could be some angle on the luck total here, leaning toward the over. I know a lot of experts are leaning towards the under. Luck rankings say a little bit differently. The luck rankings expected score prediction is Seattle 25.6, New England 20.5. So it makes the spread Seattle minus 5.1. So again, no real angle there at 4.5, kind of a dead zone there at 4.5, 5. And the total at 46.1, leaning over that 45 or 45.5.
Right.
So if you're a fan of the luck rankings and you want to tail them, we'll have quick slips for Seattle minus 4.5 and the over 45 or 45.5. Personally, I'm staying away from the side in the total, but it is hard to ignore a 63% playoff totals trend with 6 of 7 being correct on the Super Bowl total, luck total.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, different teams, different circumstances, but the trend is very strong here for a luck over in this game. Nick, I wanted to ask you about some live betting angles because you host an amazing show called Bet What Happens Live at halftime for a majority of the primetime games in the NFL. And one of the things that we used to do a couple years ago, especially on the Touchdown Show podcast, is for Super Bowls, we would try to envision scenarios of what would be an angle we could take if this happens or if this happens. So I wanted to just pick your brain on some angles that we could look at, like maybe like what if like the Seahawks are trailing at half, or if the Patriots are trailing at half, kind of thing. So what could we do, or what should we maybe look at if the Seahawks are in a trailing game script?
Yeah, I looked at several different subsets, leading by a lot, neutral game script, close game, all that stuff. But the biggest angles were what you just said. Either team trailing at half. If Seattle is trailing at half, we want to look at Kenneth Walker overs, rushing overs, which would correlate really well with Sean's third quarter prop, I should say. Seattle, they have been 2% more run heavy than league average in any second half game script. Whether they've been leading, they've been 2% more run heavy than other teams with a leading script, or when they're trailing, they've been 2% more run heavy than other teams with a trailing script. But sportsbooks tend to over adjust for trailing scripts. They will say, they're trailing, so they should be passing a lot more, but Seattle will still lean on their run. So I think we eye Kenneth Walker III rushing overs if they're trailing at half. Now, if New England is trailing at halftime, they are very script dependent. When they have a second half lead, they pass less than 50% of the time. They pass only 46% of the time. But if they are trailing in the second half, the Patriots pass 76% time. That is a 30% jump in pass rate. So if New England is trailing at halftime, they're going to be passing a whole lot. That means you need to be eyeing Drake Maye overs, whether it's yards or passing touchdowns or interceptions or his scrambling, rushing yardage. It won't necessarily be all of those, but look at the sports book, see what they're offering, and compare it to his current projection. And of course, watch Bet What Happens Live at halftime in the Action Network Discord, because I will be analyzing all of those numbers if the Patriots are trailing, and we'll find the best over value on Drake Maye.
And the Seahawks angle, I think, is important because if you've been in the Action Network Discord, you know that angle of taking the running back on the trailing team at halftime, especially if they get the ball first, right? So I love these angles here. So yeah, if Seattle's trailing at half, let's look at Kenneth Walker rushing props. If New England is trailing at half, then we got to start looking at Drake Maye passing props, or even just Drake Maye overs, depending on what angle we take. But when Bet What Happens Live starts, we'll be able to analyze those numbers a little bit better and make sure that we get the best edge on those. All right, Nick, before we get you out of here, I got to ask you for a prop. I know that we got a ton of props already logged in the app. I know a lot of those have moved. Is there anything still showing value for you that you would like to give out here today?
Yeah, well, this will be my 11th Super Bowl bet, official prop here, and I'm going to go with their tight end, AJ Barner, to have over half a rushing yard, plus
Nice.
116 at FanDuel. We just need one or more rushing yard. And it's the Super Bowl. You know what works for you at this point in the year. Seattle's played 19 games. They know what works. And what works in short yardage situations for them is the AJ Barner tush push. So if and when the opportunity presents itself, you have to run these most successful plays. AJ Barner has converted 10 of 11 tush pushes if you include the one in the playoffs. And there's no Zach Charbonnet, so he's not going to be, usurping some of those carries on these short yardage situations, especially if it's 1 yard to go or maybe, a yard and a half to go. It's going to be the AJ Barner tush push. And the Patriots defensively allow the second most yards on sneaks, whether it's quarterback sneaks or tush pushes, at 2.4 yards per carry. Again, second worst in the NFL. So AJ Barner over half a rushing yard, plus 116 at FanDuel is my next Super Bowl prop bet. And hopefully I'll lock in one more before kickoff. But Gilles, again, last chance to bet the NFL all year will be at halftime. So make sure you're in the Action Network Discord. That's discord.gg/Action Network. And we'll be live betting at halftime. Bad Bunny's not going to make you money. Hopefully we will.
No, he probably won't. I mean, unless you have inside info on what the first song
That's
is.
true. That's true. That's true. That could happen. But
Either
either way, you don't have to watch that. You have to watch live to get the live bets.
absolutely. Okay, last thing, and then we'll get you out of here. Your luck rankings expected score prediction is 25.6 to 20.5 for Seattle. Is that what you're picking for your final score prediction as well?
Yeah, we'll round those up. So 26-21 Seattle.
All right. So that is the luck rankings with Dr. Nick Giffen. Make sure to follow him on the Action app, Nick_Giffen. And again, tune in to Bet What Happens Live for halftime of Super Bowl 60 if you want to be able to take advantage of some of those bets. All right, Nick, thanks a lot. We'll see you later in the Action Network Discord. We now welcome in our Director of Research, Evan Abrams. He's my go-to guy when it comes to the latest betting trends and data. He's got a Super Bowl betting primer that is pinned to his profile right now in the Action Network app, and is also on the X and Twitter. And right now, using a lot of Bet Labs systems and tools, they're offering 60% off the first 3 months if you wanted to sign up for Bet Labs. We just dropped a link in the YouTube chat if you want to join that up. But Evan, we're now here. It's game day. We've seen this spread. I've seen this spread go from 3.5. I've seen 5. Just take us on a journey here and tell us about how the market is unfolding right now for Super Bowl 60.
Yeah, so we kind of see this every single year where the bet percentage is a little bit wider early last week, going into even early this week, and then it starts to tighten on game day, which is exactly what's happened here. So at Action Network, we started with about 75% of tickets and even 75% of the handle on the Seahawks early last week, as of like Monday. Now, we are down to like 58% of the tickets on Seattle, and it's almost even in terms of the money. So you're seeing a lot of New England money come in on game day, which honestly expected to tighten out. Also, Celtics play today. So maybe some people throwing in some Celtics, Patriots, parlays. Who knows how it's coming in? But of course, that is what we're seeing. And then the over, which is usually what it is. Most people bet on the over for the Super Bowl, one single game. But we've got about 70% of the tickets right now on over 45.5, even though it was around 46.5. This would be the third Super Bowl since 2004 with 70% or higher. Both games had 50 plus points. So we will see what happens today. And I believe we have a streak of 40 plus points in the Super Bowl that goes back a bunch of years as well. So we will see if that changes. And then one more I'll give you. With the spread being at 4.5, this will be the 17th straight Super Bowl with the favorite laying less than 5 points. Previous record was just 5 straight games. So 17 straight Super Bowls, favorite laying less than 5. Pretty crazy. And you have 32 Super Bowls that have had a spread of 6 or less. The winner of the Super Bowl is 31-1 against the spread. So either the underdog wins outright or the favorite covers. The only one who didn't, of course, Rams and Bengals in Super Bowl 56.
I blame the Giants. They
That's
ruined
fair.
they ruined the spread, like where you had those big spreads with the Patriots. Nobody wanted to do it ever again. They don't want to lay those big points now anymore.
It did basically end there. You're right.
Let's talk about some of the props though, because not only is the spread, like the markets, like the totals and spreads moving, but there's seen some pretty big action on certain players. What are you seeing so far as we enter kickoff or we get closer to kickoff?
Yeah, this is basically open for most of these props, which was early to mid last week to now, and three of them are rushing props. So Kenneth Walker was about 79 and a half and 80 and a half, now down to 72 and a half in the market. Ramondre Stevenson was about 56 and a half, now down to 48 and a half. Sean Kerner knows a little bit something about that one.
Yep.
Drake Maye, 29 and a half, which is the number I took, now up to 36 and a half, 37 and a half in some markets. And then receiving yards, JSN opened at 99 and a half, which is one of the largest lines we've seen in the last 20 years for receiver in the Super Bowl, now down to 93 and a half. So basically three props going down in the market, and then Drake Maye, which a lot have been talking about, is scrambling, this and that, has moved up about 7 yards in the market.
Yeah, the Ramondre one, I tailed Kerner immediately as that happened, and that prop, I mean, it got taken off the board in some spots for like a couple hours
as most
until,
do.
yeah, and even the JSN receiving yards prop, like that's kind of in line of what we saw even from Super Bowl 56 with Cooper Kupp, like that was around that range too. So again, it's kind of getting that Cooper Kupp wide receiver one treatment there. Let's talk about Super Bowl underdogs though, because
Sure.
there's an interesting trend that you have found here. Tell us what that is.
Yeah, I mean, the dog is covered lately. 5-game ATS win streak for underdogs in the Super Bowl, the longest in history. Entering today with the Patriots, obviously plus 4.5. And then if you look 4.5 or more, those teams 12-2-2 against the spread last 30 years. At 4.5 or more, they have covered 7 straight Super Bowls. So we will see if New England can keep that going today.
Okay, so yeah, and I mean, yeah, the New England Patriots. I'm not going to dispute their path and how they got here or whatever else, but yeah, it'd be very interesting to see if they are able to cover the spread here in this
Yeah.
spot. Now we talked about Jackson Smith and Jigba just as far as his yardage prop dropping as we get closer, but from an MVP standpoint, it looks like a lot of people still believe in him on that site.
Yeah, a lot of belief. So most bet for touchdown and most bet for first touchdown would be Jackson Smith and Jigba, especially biggest liability at about 2 or 3 different sports books for him to win Super Bowl MVP.
Oh, man.
Going back to 2003, he is the 8th non-quarterback listed 5-1 or shorter to win Super Bowl MVP. None have won the award. Cooper Kupp won it at about 6-1. And if you look at just wide receivers, it's the second lowest price for a wide receiver since 2003 to win Super Bowl MVP, only behind Larry Fitzgerald, who was 4-1 back in 2008. So that is the comparison. And again, you talk about the 99.5 to 93.5 mark. Really, really high for a wide receiver, especially in this type of game. So that'll be interesting to see and follow along with.
And the other thing too about JSN that I wanted to bring up is over the last 4 years, the most bet touchdown prop usually came through. Like Cooper Kupp came through in 56.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce was the most bet scorer. It was last year that Saquon Barkley was the most bet.
Correct.
Did not come through. Jalen Hurts ends up vulturing it here. So I know Raybon knows about that because he bet on Saquon no touchdown last year for that. So very interesting. All right, now pro projections right now, especially, I think you actually have a couple Action Pro projection picks that you would like to give out. So what are we looking at that might have a bit of an edge before Super Bowl 60?
Sure. So I sent out a tweet last night about 3 or 4 different articles, a lot of projections from pro across the network. But the two I'm going to look at just for some fun dart throws, first touchdown bets. So Ramondre, they've got it 9-1 down to about plus 850 in the market. Short yardage, red zone work. The snaps over Travion routes give him a nice edge in that market. And then the second one, AJ Barner. They have it at about 14-1, down to about 13-1 in the market. But listen, this is a higher upside red zone target for Darnold. Also, the nice angle, and Nick Giffen mentioned this as well, the rushing angle. Could be a tush push. There are lots of ways for Barner to get in the end zone, but Ramondre 9-1, Barner 14-1. And if you want to get in and check out the other articles I have on my profile as I tweeted and on actionnetwork.com, celebrate Super Bowl 60. You can get $60 off an annual subscription right now. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro to get started before kick. You got about 6 hours, so get in. Let's do it.
I'm just thinking of the crazy game script angle that would have to happen where AJ Barner scores the first touchdown, but then it's also in the third quarter because that's what Nick Giffen has right now at 12-1 for an anytime touchdown.
Yeah,
for
we'll
Barner.
take it.
I tailed him for a second half touchdown, but yeah, if he scores the first touchdown and that happens in the third quarter, what a double whammy that would be. That would be amazing to see. All right, Evan, Great job as always, man. Always love having you here every week to talk about the market and how it's unfolding. Make sure to follow Evan on X, Evan H. Abrams. Also, you can check out again his Super Bowl primer. It is pinned there on X. So, Evan, thanks a lot, man, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
All right, let's take it up a notch. I want to hit a lotto here, and I want to talk to somebody who I think is just one of the lotto kings here, somebody that I love hearing his analysis on parlays, and that is Grant Neefer. And he usually loves to find these plus EV parlays for us each and every week, and he's with Scores and Odds. You could find him in the Parlay Science Discord. He's dropping bangers all the time. Also, you could tell by the hat, but big Seahawks fan. I won't hold it against him. But Grant, I guess before we start, like, how are you feeling as a Seahawks fan entering this game? Do you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling a little nervous? How we feeling now?
I mean, I'm more nervous about the coin flip. I feel pretty confident about the Seahawks, but I think there's about a 50% chance that it hits tails, and I've got a decent amount of money. My favorite thing to do every year, put very large amounts of money on the coin flip at plus 100 odds. So I've got tails. That's what I'm more nervous about. I'm pretty confident on the Seahawks.
All right, tails never fails. All right. So if we were going to do a prop lotto for Super Bowl 60, how should we go about it?
Yeah, so we got one last football game of the year, and I got one last banger, 41 to 1 odds over at DK. Use that 30% boost, get it all the way up to 53. First leg of it, Sam Darnold, 36 plus pass attempts, plus 336. While I still think the Seahawks may end up blowing out the Patriots, 4.5 point spread, all the history suggests a close game. In close games recently, so Sam Darnold, 36 attempts versus the Rams in the last game, 34 versus the Rams in the game before that. Colts, 36 pass attempts in a close game. Rams before that, 44 pass attempts in that game. He's been passing the ball a lot in close games. So if you think this is going to be a close game, this is a phenomenal bet at plus 336. Darnold should be passing the ball a lot. The Patriots' rush defense has been incredible so far in the playoffs. So I think the Seahawks, regardless if the game's close or not, still pass at a higher rate in this spot here. So I'm rolling with that. Next up, Ramondre Stevenson touchdown, plus 150. 96% snap count in the last game. Like, Henderson is clearly getting pushed out. I don't know if he's going to have the same role in this game, but he should see at least, I think, 70-80% of snaps, making this far too high of a number here. Gets involved in the receiving game. I know it's a tough matchup for the rushing game, but the Seahawks have been much worse versus receiving tight ends and receiving running backs. Huge target share for those two, and they've been more efficient than the wide receivers. So could see an increased volume there. Could absolutely get into the end zone on a catch. Plus 150 too high. And the last one, taking it from Dr. Nick Giffen, AJ Barner, second half TD score, which correlates very nicely with the other two bets. If the Patriots get up to a early lead with Stevenson scoring a touchdown, Darnold's going to be forced to pass more. Passing more in the second half means Barner has a higher chance of scoring. You can get a plus 450 over at DK, plus 500 in other spots. But throwing it in this parlay because he scored 6 out of his 7 touchdowns this season in the second half. So parlay all three of them together, 53 to 1 odds when you use that boost. Absolute banger.
Well, and the thing too, you guys, when you did your prop show, you and Nick, I believe you gave out Ramondre touchdown on that show, and he also did Barner second half touchdown. So again, like, keep riding with the guys that we like here. And to go full mad scientist, Nick just dropped a thing to me. He said that he took AJ Barner to score a third quarter touchdown, 2 touchdowns, and the first touchdown. If you want to go full lotto on Barner, that is 132 to 1 right now at FanDuel, which is just insane with an AJ Barner. So, but yeah, this lotto parlay, we just dropped a quick slip link in the YouTube chat for this. So this is Sam Darnold, 36 plus pass attempts, Ramondre Stevenson for a touchdown, and AJ Barner to score a second half touchdown, 41 to 1 at DraftKings. But if you boost that up with the 30% boost, that is 53 to 1. All right, Grant, keep crushing it. We're going to see you back again soon for halftime for Bet What Happens Live with Nick in the Action Network Discord. Before we get out of here, though, you got to give me a final score. How do you think this game plays out?
I'm going Seahawks 27, Patriots 17. Think the under hits barely. Think the Seahawks get a pretty decent lead early on. Doesn't work well with my parlay, but I just think the Seahawks are the better team overall. So I think they win it by about touchdown to 10 points.
Well, if the Seahawks win by 10, I know that Taco Bell is getting a big order, I'd imagine, after the
Oh.
after the game. So all right. All right, Grant. Thanks a lot. We'll talk again soon. Let's get Kerner Raybon back on here and build a parlay with some long shot bets for Super Bowl 60. Now, if you are not aware, the three of us, we're on the Touchdown Podcast each week. We give out some of our favorite long shot touchdown bets, or we've been starting to do some good nominees for like the King of the End Zone promo with DraftKings. Like, guys, we even gave out a 1,500 to 1 touchdown parlay, which again, just I would not overinvest in that if you are planning to tail, just sprinkle for fun. But I say we try and find that magic again. We'll build another same game parlay for Patriots Seahawks, and we'll just get wild with some long shots. So we'll take one pick from each of us, and then we're going to build a parlay with it at the end. So Kerner, why don't you start us off? Try something that's plus 200 or better. What do you like?
I'm going to go with my favorite touchdown prop, which seems like an Action Network favorite touchdown prop,
Hell
AJ
yeah.
Barner to score at plus 250. But, I've been loving this angle the whole second half of the season because not only can he get there as a pass catching tight end, he has 6 receiving touchdowns on the season, but as everybody has mentioned, he's the main ball carrier in the tush push, and had a 90% success rate running that play. So I agree with Nick. It's the Super Bowl, the highest leverage game of the season. Why go away from that? So I think, especially if they get, on the goal line without Zach Charbonnet there, it makes sense to, let AJ Barner get the tush push play there. So I'm going to go with Barner here to score at plus 250.
All right, AJ Barner, anytime touchdown. Big fans of AJ Barner here on the show and with
Yes.
Action Network. All right, Raybon, you are up, but I said plus 200 or better, and I think you went plus 2,000 or better. So what do we got here?
It's the Super Bowl. It's the last game of the year, so let's have some fun. Here's one that I think is kind of, everyone's down on Travion Henderson. So let's go Travion Henderson, first touchdown, 25 to 1, and just break everybody's hearts, right? Because I think, the market's on Seattle. Everyone's on Ramondre, and for good reason. But if you look at Travion Henderson, first of all, he scored 9 touchdowns in the second half of the season. So it's not like he's just been completely dead. You always want to buy guys at the bottom of the market. I mean, look at the actual market this week. I mean, it went crazy down and then it went back up. So I think this is just a great time to buy Travion. And the reason I like first touchdown here is because I think he's going to get work early in the game if he kind of gets more work than expected, because the real issue with Travion is that he's a target in the passing game for opposing defenses. He's a target in the pass protection game, I should say. So it's you don't want to have him out there. Like, let's say the Patriots, come out in the second half and they're trailing and they get that 76% pass rate. That's going to be a lot of Ramondre. But early in the game, you're going to want to try to get a lead. You're going to want to give Henderson some work before the stakes get so high that you have to pass. You're in a must-pass situation, because I think it's going to come on the ground for him. And you could also kind of, have some stuff drawn up early in the game that you just want to catch the defense off guard with. He's a super fast player. So if, Super Bowl, you come out a little bit tight, Seahawks still are, this is still a relatively inexperienced team too. So you could catch them off guard. And then finally, he has that upside to return kicks. He hasn't done it since week 8.
Yes.
But remember, first kick he ever touched, I believe it was in the preseason, took it 100 yards for a touchdown. And if he's going to be minimized in the offense, it would only make sense to put him back there on kick returns. You probably catch Seattle a little bit off guard. I mean, I'm sure they're preparing for it, but he hasn't done it since week 8. Dearness Johnson has been the guy doing it, but it's the Super Bowl, so I don't know why you wouldn't put him back there early in the game. So maybe, it could even be like an opening kickoff type thing. So a lot of angles here for Henderson, but I think scoring early would make more sense for him than wait because of the his pass protection issues.
That would be such a wild start to the game too, where Patriots, like, they get the first opening possession and they're trying to get Travion on the field because they know that Ramondre is probably going to take the bulk of the carries and he just houses it like Rashid Shaheed. That would be amazing to watch. So Travion Henderson, first touchdown, 25 to 1. That is the first long shot pick from Raybon. I am going to go chalky though, and I know that Raybon, you got him for 2 touchdowns. I think you're very high on him for Super Bowl MVP. Jack Smith-Njigba, I took him for a first touchdown around plus 550. I was almost going to take his 2 touchdown prop, but I figure if he's scoring twice, it is likely going to be the first touchdown. And I think he's easily the best player on the Seahawks offense. 30% target share in the playoffs. The Patriots are 31st in defensive DVOA versus wide receiver ones during the regular season. And there's been some coach speak hinting that Christian Gonzalez may shadow JSN, which I think would be a terrible mistake. He's had some issues in coverage in these playoffs. I just think JSN is just too good. It's not really going to matter much. And Milton Williams is back, so I think the rushing attack near the goal line could be a little difficult for the Seahawks. I know that we're fading Kenneth Walker in certain spots as well. So a perfect statement to make a Super Bowl MVP run would be to score the opening touchdown, Rayvon. So I love JSN in this spot. All right, let's kick it up a notch. We each have one that's like around plus 200 or better. Let's up the stakes here. Let's go plus 500 or better now. Kerner, you're up. What would you like to do? A prop, parlay, I don't care. Anything that's over plus 500.
Yeah, I'm going to parlay the 2 alt overs of official props I have. So I'm going to go with Hunter Henry to get 15 plus receiving yards in the second quarter.
Okay.
And parlay that with Stephon Diggs, 15 plus receiving yards in the third quarter. And that's plus 520. But just again, I've done a ton of, I mean, we've had 2 weeks to look into one game. So I've done a ton of diving in on these quarter by quarter props and projections. And from what I found, the second quarter is Hunter Henry's quarter on the Patriots for whatever reason. But, he saw a 22% target rate in the second quarter, which, his highest quarter. But he had a 22% target first read rate. So you'd expect him to see like a 30% target rate. So they're clearly scheming up plays for him in the second quarter. And he makes every catch count. His median catch was 12 yards. So he might need just one catch to clear this. And then Stephon Diggs, he owns the third quarter. Had the second highest yards per route rate in the league in the third quarter. Highest target rate in the league at 37%. And I know Raybon and I kind of try to figure out why, and it makes sense. Really good coaching staff figures out ways to get their best wide receiver the ball coming out at halftime. So with a longer halftime here, it gives them a little more time to scheme up plays for Diggs. But I kind of love this angle where I'm rooting for Hunter Henry to get all the receiving yards in the second quarter, and then Diggs in the third quarter here.
Yeah, it was Diggs last week, or not last week, against the Broncos. Like, I think he had like 6 targets like in the first quarter, but it was like 10 yards total receiving yards. So it was just like, okay, can we up the usage here? So Hunter Henry, 15 plus receiving yards in the second quarter, paired with Stephon Diggs, 15 plus receiving yards in the third quarter. You can get that around plus 520, I believe. That's FanDuel where we can get that, right, Kerner? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Raybon, so we've already hit, we already got a 25 to 1 from you right now. So how are you going to up that? Like, is there another one? Like, what are you doing with the next one?
Yeah, so I think it just, the thing in this game that I think is really interesting is that, New England, is going up against just an excellent defense in Seattle. I mean, they're number 1 against the pass, number 1 against the run. So there's going to be kind of weird stuff that goes on. That's why I'm trying to attack New England with some kind of longer shot touchdown. So we're going to do it again. And we're going to go Kyrus Tonga anytime touchdown at 28 to 1. And listen, this is one where you have to kind of look. He hasn't scored a touchdown, obviously. If, for people that don't know, he plays mostly defensive line, but he gets a couple snaps usually per game lined up in the backfield as a, blocker at fullback. But that makes him an eligible receiver. That means he doesn't have to report because he's lining up as like the fullback, not like a lineman or anything where it makes it super obvious or something like that. And he's had a high this year of 6 backfield snaps at fullback. He's played 2 each in the divisional playoff and the conference championship. He's lined up as a left side fullback, right side fullback. So he's lined up in a few different spots. And the New England Patriots, another thing to consider is, he's in there for his blocking. He's 338 pounds, right? New England doesn't really have an AJ Barner. Drake Maye, he's not the greatest on sneaks. He's much better as a scrambler. So if New England did try to push it, Tonga is an underrated potential option because he'd already be directly behind May. If May could like kind of move out of the way and like Tonga could come in and just boom forward or something like that. There's a lot of different angles. He could also sneak out of the backfield. He's run a route or two this year as well. So a few different angles for him to score. And just remember, Josh McDaniels has been through this rodeo before. What do we know about him? He's going to pull out, he's getting something out of the bag. Like something's coming out of the bag for this game in terms of the trick plays. And because Seattle's so good and it's so hard to find like a plus matchup for the Patriots, just when you're looking at, their starting lineup, I think it increases it that like a guy like Henderson I talked about before, or a guy like Tonga, just a surprise touchdown scorer. I think the odds are higher for the Patriots. So yeah, give me Tonga at 28-1. You can find this on DK.
This is almost like I feel like your two bets are almost like a fade the public touchdown bets because like nobody's probably really betting on Travion to score a touchdown, or at least in the first touchdown market. And then Tonga, I'm sure, probably has like a couple sprinkles here or there, but nobody's looking at it as in depth as an angle as you are, right? So awesome angles here for the Patriots touchdown scores from Raybon with Travion Henderson for first touchdown at 25-1 and Tonga for an anytime touchdown at 28-1. Well, I'm gonna bank that. So this isn't necessarily saying that I don't think your guy is going to score. It's more of if he's not going to get it, I'm hoping that Drake Maye does instead. So instead, I'm going to take Drake Maye for 2 touchdowns. He's around 35-1. My favorite touchdown bet of the game was Drake Maye, but when I bet that at like plus 410 right after the conference championship games, that immediately steamed. Like it's probably like plus 280 right now at best. So I didn't really want to give that out as just a touchdown prop in general. I thought 2 touchdowns would be the best angle here. And thought we could just get crazy and ladder it because that like he led the NFL in total scrambles, second in scrambles per game behind Patrick Mahomes. He tends to take a jump in scramble rate when he's not being blitzed, and the Seahawks were bottom 5 in blitz rate during the regular season. So I just like May to call his own number near the goal line. I think he's going to get at least 1 score, and I think it's very conceivable that May just calls his own number to run to the end zone pylon. I do think that maybe they'll try to use him in maybe like 1 or 2 tush push scenarios, but then again, if it doesn't convert, then Tonga will probably take over for it in that point there. So with the shoulder injury, I think that's a bit overblown as well. So I'm going to take Drake Maye for 2 touchdowns. I ladder both, but let's do a parlay. Let's get real crazy here because I think, Raybon, I don't want to overrule your Travion first touchdown bet, but I think we should use JSN first touchdown, just given of how invested you are already with the MVP side of things. But, Kerner, I really love this Henry Diggs angle that you have here, with Henry getting 15 receiving yards in the second quarter and Diggs to have 15 receiving yards in the third quarter. But I figure let's just round this out, get crazy with Drake Maye for 2 touchdowns. If you parlay all 3 of those guys, that's 742-1 at FanDuel. So what a way to end the season, right? Just to put a 742-1 parlay out there for people to tail. If you want to tail this parlay, the quick slip link has just been dropped in the YouTube chat. So Raybon, Kerner, just want to say great work today. Great work all season. We are locked and loaded now for Super Bowl 60. I know you guys are probably going to go on a bit of a break, but I know you two will be back soon as always with the Fantasy Flex podcast, previewing the NFL draft, off-season projections, and I'm sure we'll be back for the Touchdown Show podcast every week with our best touchdown bets for next season. But in the meantime, make sure to like and subscribe to the Action Network channel. This will get you the notifications when a new show is up. And if you want any of our picks, make sure to download the Action app because all of our picks and content are there, and you can get pick notifications with an Action Pro subscription when we track a bet in the app. So I want to thank everybody again who's tuned in with us all season for Action Playbook Live. Thank you for watching for Super Bowl 60. Bon shows.